Well, let me just say, first of all, like my pastor says all the time when he goes and speaks elsewhere, greetings from your brothers and sisters in Christ in Las Vegas. Some of you didn't know you had any brothers and sisters in Las Vegas. But the truth is that God's doing amazing things there. And he's using us and other churches, dozens of other churches in Las Vegas, not just to reach Las Vegas, but to reach the world for him. And man, we're just so happy to be able to be a part of it. We're Southern boys for the most part who are there now. We're trying to get out of that because our accent gives that away, and it doesn't always lead people straight to us. They like to hear us talk, but they're almost positive we're uneducated. So we don't know much. My name's Tom McCormick, and I am super honored to be with you guys today. And I'm honored just to be asked to be a part of this gathering at all. I'm one of the pastors in Las Vegas at Hope Church. And I know some of you won't admit it that you've actually been there. When I left the church that I was serving in Orlando, I'll never forget, I was standing at the front as we were leaving that night, and people were coming by and shaking hands and hugging our necks. And can't tell you the amount of people that would whisper in my ear, "I'll be there in March." It didn't have anything to do with me going, all right? So I know some of you may not admit that, and the truth is I've been there for 8 years. I've never pulled a slot, just to let you know. But if you'd have told me 8 years ago I was going to be in Las Vegas, I would have said there's not a way that would ever happen. But I will tell you this, if you ask me today if I ever want to leave, I'm going to say no. What we've seen God do, I don't know that I could have seen that. God called us there, and we moved back in 2010. Hope, though, started in 2001 with 18 people in my pastor's house. We've seen phenomenal growth. We've seen lots of people give their lives to Jesus. There's nothing like conversion growth. That's a good place for an amen. Y'all know what conversion growth is? I mean, most of the time we're switching members back and forth. Man, it's awesome to see people just come to know Jesus and come to faith in him. But I'll tell you this, we work hard. There's a lot of work to be done. And I'm going to talk a lot about that today, too. I grew up on a farm, and my dad always said, "Son, farming's hard work." The people in this room, these are the workers. I'm not saying everybody's not a worker in our church. I'm just telling you, if you're going to be successful in what we do, you got to put some work into it. You got to put your back into it. And there's a lot of hard work that we do. Lots of people work hard in ministry, though, and I know that everybody who works hard in ministry don't get to see what we do. And so I just want to say thank you, Lord, in front of all you guys. Because to be honest with you, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer when it comes to this. A lot of you maybe should be here teaching me what I'm about to say, but I just want to give you some of the things that God has shown us. This is going to be super practical for you, I hope. So get out a pen and ask the questions later and stop me and let's talk through it. But as we start today, and my topic is building strong groups, I want to start basically today by acknowledging one of my mentors and friends who's also here, and his name's Fred Boone. Fred, at least raise your hand. You can stand up and take a bow if you'd like. But Fred's a huge part of my life. This man poured into me. He poured life into me in ways he has no earthly idea. In fact, I've learned more from him than he will ever know. And he knows more and has probably forgotten more than I will ever know. He learned from men like Leon Kilbruth and Noel Wright. And I saw Alan Taylor here today, and Alan has no clue who I am probably, but his church in Woodstock, Georgia, where he used to serve, they actually started our church. And so when I talk about Fred or even Alan, like people have impact on other people. And I want to say before I start, this is not even part of it. I got like 10 pages to go. You impact people whether you know it or not. And as I stepped up here, I said, "Fred, I'm about to say everything you taught me. So as I speak, it's you. You're just saying what I'm about to say. And there's nothing new under the sun." That's what Solomon says, right? Thank you. Listen. Talk to me, all right? Do your best anyway. So thank you, Fred. Man, I love you. You've been a huge impact in my life, brother. Thank you. Super blessing. And whatever happens in Vegas, Fred, I want to say this in front of everybody. You're part of it. Amen. Amen. So as I begin, I want to start with a quote from Fred. All right? Fred don't even remember saying this, and I'm almost positive John Maxwell's actually the one that said it. But I heard it from Fred, so I'm going to quote Fred on it. Here's what he said. He said, the ships in the harbor get no higher than the water. You're the water. The ships are all the people who sit under you, who are following your lead, okay? Now, I know somebody may have said this, but Fred said it to me, and I'll tell you this. What Michael said this morning about your time with God and about you growing in your faith and about your quiet time, your God time, whatever you call it. Listen, you're the ship. You're the person who makes the levels of the water rise or lower, okay? So here's the deal. Whatever you think about, and let me say one more thing before we start to get everything in context. When I say groups, I'm talking groups, okay? I'm talking Sunday school. I'm talking small groups. Some of you call it cell groups. Some people call it life groups. Some people, who knows what people call it. But here's what I'm going to tell you. When I say groups, I'm talking about the breadth of what it means for people to get together, study the Bible, take care of each other, be missional in their approach to what the world looks like and our mission in it, and then produce leaders out of that. So listen, if I could, I would do Sunday school in Las Vegas. I know that probably shocks some of you. You say, well, I know I look super young, but the truth is, I'll be 50 this year. And I'm not a dinosaur. At the same time, I'm not a millennial. No, I didn't mean anything by that. I'm just saying, if I could build a building, which would be $20 million for us, and we don't have that. We got a bunch of first century Christians in our church who are learning what it means to give. We've chosen not to build an educational space, but we've not chosen not to have groups. And so we call it small groups because it's off campus. But the truth is, if I could have a Sunday school, I'd have it. And for those of you who got a building and you're not having it, or you think that something else is going to be better, shame on you. Because I'm telling you, you're going to take the Sunday school off campus and it's going to be the same old pig. It won't change because you changed the name. That's like on page 4, but it was good right there. So what God has taught us at Hope is this. And when I refer to hope, that's all I know when it comes to what I'm going to tell you today. What Fred taught me in Central Florida is what I just took with me when I went there. But people, listen, and believe this. People are doing exactly what you're teaching them to do. Like they are hitting the target. Like whatever target you've put there, I will promise you they're hitting it. You say it's not what it should be. Well, you're the ship. Like make the water rise, like it lowered. You say, no, it's other people. It's the deacons and, it's my pastor. He won't make it the DNA of the church. And listen, here's the deal. He's giving you the responsibility. You do what only you can do. And at the same time, just know you're not the ship. You're the water that there's other ships are lowering and raising on. But people are doing exactly what we are teaching them to do. We sometimes find ourselves complaining about our people by saying, oh, our people won't do this or they won't do that. Anybody ever said that? Don't raise your hand. But the truth is, the answer lays in this question. What have we led them to do? Because the thing that we can know is our people are doing exactly what we've asked. That hurt. Now, as we say this too, understand I'm a practitioner like most of you. Like I'm a pastor at the church. Like I talk to our people all the time. I have leaders who are under me who lead leaders. So this is not something I don't know anything about. Listen, I've messed up and I'm still messing up and I'm still learning. I'm still going and I'm still trying. But I want you to know the things that I'm telling you, we've tried to put in place, not just to work in Las Vegas, but to work around the world. We believe that it's what the Bible teaches about this. So as we start today, I want to talk about the keys to building strong groups. Okay? I got a quote coming up for you here, but here's the quote I want you to kind of wrap your mind around. Always answer the question why before answering the question how. Always answer the question why. And I'm going to kind of walk you through this. A few years ago, my wife looked at me and she said, Tom, you really need to lose some weight. We've been married a while and but it still hurt. I didn't want to know I was fat, but I am. Now I'm a lot better than I was. But she said, you need to lose weight. And I said, well, I really like fried food. I want to eat what I eat. I love Little Debbie's. I got these two guys that look like they just finished working out up here, and I'm talking about this, but they did. They probably did. Yeah. So she said, you need to lose weight. But the thing I learned about myself is that losing weight is not about how you lose it. There's like 1,000 different diets. I started doing this thing called the ketogenic diet because you can eat as much fat as you want pretty much, and I thought, bacon and eggs and butter, that's like me. I mean, if that's the diet, I'm in, People say, well, I do the South Beach diet. I do the Atkins diet. Some people say I do I only eat 1,300 calories a day. I mean, there are dozens and dozens of ways to lose weight. But the truth is, it never lasts. And the reason is, everybody always wants to know how to do something. They don't want to know why they should do it. But one day, I stopped at a Walgreens. I slipped my arm in that little blood pressure machine, which I have no idea if it's calibrated right or not. But I do know this. When I slipped it in there, on the screen, it said, you're dying. So, all of a sudden, I had some motivation. Because this all of a sudden wasn't about being fat. This was about, you're 43. This can't continue. Because I knew if I went to my doctor, he'd put me on blood pressure medication, or he'd put me on a diet. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do this before he has to. I came home. I didn't even tell my wife what I was going to do. This was a Friday. On a Saturday, I got up and I just decided I'm going to do this thing right. And if you know me, Fred knows me, I'm like all in or not in at all. And when I went all in, I lost like 50 pounds. 50. In like 4 months. I was in. I was exercising. I was eating right. I was doing the right thing. But here's why I tell you this story. People who lose weight, the only reason it will be sustained, and the only reason I've never gotten back to where I was 7, 8 years ago, is because why meant more than how. See, some of you want to know how to do groups. You're like, how do you do it? Like, how? We already know how to do it. Guys back in the 30s and 40s figured it all out and told us, and we've acted like they're old. Like they had all the steps, and we just think we've gotten a little smarter than they've gotten. And now listen, I'm not here putting down anybody except for to say the people in the past weren't dumb. They had great, great reasons. Our problem is we don't know why we do what we do. I'm telling you, because I've asked myself this question. When I went to Vegas, I thought, man, we're going to do it like this. And then when I got out there, it wasn't like that. And I went back to the basic stuff and I said, what am I going to do? And how didn't do it. It was why when I figured out why should I do it. So I want to start there today. Know the reason for groups. Start with why. Now I want you to think for a second. And in your book there somewhere, I want you to write the answers to this question I'm about to give you, okay? Why does your church have small groups or Sunday school? Why does your church, this question is probably not up there, but why does your church have groups or have Sunday school? I want you to just write, I'm going to give you about 30 seconds, okay? So I want you to just write out a little one-sentence thing. Why do you have it? Go. Okay, and as you finish writing, if other people were here, and some of you probably do have people that you came with from your church, you can share what you said with each other and see if it's the same. The reason I want you to do that is because I want us to know that in most cases, including our church years ago, we wouldn't have written the same thing. The people who were in the leadership team of the small groups would not have written the same thing. There would have been 5 different answers, which is part of the problem that we have because we're not really sure why we have it. We can tell you how we do it, but we're really not sure why we do it. Most churches have these group options because, well, that's just what churches do. We have small groups because that's what our church does. Or we have Sunday school because that's just what we've always done. And so why do we have it? Well, we have it because we also have dinner on the grounds on the 3rd Saturday of March, and then the revival coming up in the fall. We used to do a week, but now we do it through Wednesday, because that's what we do. And then, the women's tea's in December. Do you understand what I mean? Like we get in this flow of things and we just do them because that's just what we do. Why? Listen, and we do this with everything in our lives. I mean, have any of you ever contemplated, now for the older, you know this, but in the backs of pews in most Southern Baptist churches, the church I grew up in, they had these little round holes in the backs of the pews beside the hymnals. You remember those, some of you, right? So now churches don't have those, but there was a reason for that. And the reason is because that's where you put your little communion cup after you took the Lord's Supper. And then the guy would come by or the lady would come by and he or she would clean it up. It was good because you didn't have to crush it with your feet. I mean, why do restaurants give out straws? Well, there's a reason, because I don't drink out of straws at home. But when I go to a restaurant, I got to have a straw. Give me a straw. Even if I got a glass without a top on it, give me a straw. There are reasons we do what we do, and there are reasons that people do Sunday school or do small group, but they usually don't know why. A few years ago, I had a knock at the door in Las Vegas, and my son at that time, he was about 8 or 9, and he said, "Dad, can I go answer the door?" I said, "Yes, son, go ahead." And he comes back, and he's got this bag, and he's got this bag. It looks, okay, good. So he's holding it, and he's got it like this. He said, "Can I open it?" I said, "Sure." He took it out, and it was a phone book. And he said, "Daddy, what is this?" I said, "Are you serious?" He said, "Yeah, what is this?" I said, "It's a phone book." He said, "What do you do with a phone book?" I said, "It's got people's numbers in it where you can call people on the telephone." He said, "They make a book for people." He said, "Your iPhone's got that on it. Why can't you just..." Listen, there used to be a reason for the phone book. My son picked up we were in a Salvation Army one day, and there were these records. You remember the big, I forget what they are, the LPs, right? And he picked it up and he said, "Dad, this is the biggest CD I've ever seen." You see, there were reasons for the record. They're actually coming back now, too, by the way. But there were reasons that we've had those things through the past. And listen, there's a reason for Sunday school, too. There's a reason for groups. There's a reason that you want your people to meet in community together. Now, I know I'm preaching to the choir. I got it. Some of you going, "I wish my pastor was sitting right here." I know that's what you're thinking, because I've thought it. The truth is, most churches have a difficult time explaining why groups are so important to a fellowship, though. And unless you know why, yes, we all got an answer, but how fired up about the answer are you that you wrote down? Like, how passionate are you to say, "Man, this is the thing right here. This is..." So what we did, we sat down as a hope team, and we developed a mission. We identified some values. We devised a strategy. And this is a whole other teaching point, but I just want to say this. And we created a way to measure all the things that we want to do. And it took a long time. It took us 1.5 years just to put that stuff together and to flesh it all out. And it's still not perfect. But I'll tell you this, we came up with a mission statement of hope, and we said, listen, whoever comes in our back door and taps any person on the shoulder at Hope who's been there any length of time, and they ask this one question, we want them to answer the same exact way. And here's the statement we came up with. At Hope Church, we exist to connect people to live the life of a Jesus follower. That's the statement. Now, that's broad, but we meant for it to be broad because we want the choir, the preschool ministry, the children's ministry, the youth ministry. We want everybody saying the same thing. We want to know why we do what we do, and that's all that we do. Some of you probably have heard of a man named Matt Emmons. Have you heard Matt Emmons? This is a great illustration. Matt was he was in the Olympics, and what's that one where they shoot and they ski and they run? It's all kind of stuff. But he's like a marksman, right? And so he's like the best in the world. The best. Like he's leading at the end. I think it was the 2004 Olympics in Athens. I think that's when it was. And he's leading the event, American. And all he's got to do on the very last shot he has is just hit the target. Now, that's a long way away. It's like 150 yards away. So it's not, next door. But he's so good at it that it's really no problem. Have y'all heard this story, anybody? Right? So Matt comes up and he gets down and, you've seen him. Like, it's a whole thing, man. It's like he's in the army and he's laying down on there. He's got it scoped out and he's looking at the target and he shoots. And sure enough, when he shoots, he watches it go through the bullseye and he's thinking, it's over. I got the gold. But he looked up, and there was no score for his shot. So he thought there must have been some kind of malfunction for there to be no score. He looked at the judge and said, hey, what's going on? And they looked at it a little further, and what they noticed was that he had shot at the wrong target. He shot in the lane next to him, and he got a 0, and he finished 8th. I tell you that story today to say this. You got to know which target you're aiming at. If the target you're aiming at is the one that you wrote down, praise the Lord. But if what you wrote down is in the lane over, why are you looking at that target? Man, get a target. Find it. You got to find out why you are doing groups. Why would you do what you do? Here's why we do what we do at Hope. Because we want to see people come to Jesus. That's why we do it. We're around lost people all day long. I'm not sure that everybody, so I think there may be some people who actually are on our staff at Hope, not the pastors, of course, that still don't know the Lord. I'm almost convinced in some of our areas that we need. But here's what I'll tell you. We're around people all the time. We want to see people come to Christ. The main reason we have small groups at Hope is so that they can not just grow deeper in their faith, which I'm afraid when we get to heaven, we're going to find out how smart we were and how dumb it really made us. And I'm not joking. And I'm not against education either, because I've got some education. But education ain't the key every single time. So does your church's mission statement, does the thing that you wrote down make groups or Sunday school necessary at your church? Like, why do you do what you do? Even what you wrote about Sunday school or groups, what you wrote down, does it make it necessary? If your church as a whole knows why groups or Sunday school should or do exist at your church can have strong groups. Because here's what I want to tell you. Strong groups originate from a groups ministry that focuses on on strong groups. Strong groups originate from a groups ministry that focuses on. You say, Tom, how do you have strong groups? You got a groups ministry that focuses on it. Am I yelling? I feel like I'm yelling. I'm a little passionate about it, though. I apologize. Look at the next thing that I have up there. A strong groups ministry originates, listen, from a church that focuses on a strong groups ministry. Listen, if you have a ministry that's having to do everything by yourself, I'm telling you, you're swimming upstream. That's why you're looking at a guy today who stands here, and I'm literally in awe to be able to do it, because I'm the dumbest small groups pastor in America. I'm telling you, to be honest with you, I just like spreadsheets. I looked at the spreadsheets. I got there, they said, we got 1,200 people on the weekend. I said, praise God, we need 140 groups. I just did the math. It wasn't rocket science. I said, how many leaders we got? They said, well, we put 250 people through shepherd's training, which is our initial leadership development. They said, but we only got 30 group leaders. I said, well, that's not good. We got 250 who went through the training, only 30 that are leading groups. Something ain't right. Give me the list of the people. I got the list of the people. I made 11 copies. I gave them to all the staff. I said, I want you, because I didn't know anybody. I said, I want you to mark on there who could be, because of what you know personally about them, a small groups leader. I got back like 40 names. All but 2 said yes. I met with them. I didn't just email them. I'm going to talk about that in a second too. I said, this is where I gained some of the weight, right? I had lunch and dinner and breakfast and had coffee out the wazoo for about 2 to 3 months. I met with every one of them. 2 out of the 40 said no. I said, I just want you to go through the training. I want you to become a small group leader, but I want to show you what it looks like. Would you do that with me? Face to face. And here's what they all said. Yeah, I'll do it. Listen, you got to know why you want to have a strong groups ministry. You got to have a church that is behind it. Your pastor, the staff. And what I've observed personally and from a distance as well is that leaders, pastors, if you will, want a groups ministry, but they want it to be strong in spite of how the ministry is structured, facilitated, and maintained. And I'm talking about us. Whew, that was a lot. I grew up in rural West Tennessee, like I told you. Well, I may not have told you. Go Vols, by the way. Amen. There we go. Amen. Not that we had a season or anything. We lost most of our games. But I grew up in rural West Tennessee on a farm where every day there were challenges. Every day. Some we knew were coming and some we didn't. We didn't know when the cows would get out. My dad had a saying, though, and I've already told you what that saying is, and it's that farming is hard work. If you want the crops to grow, you got to work. You got to work in it, you got to work on it. But at the end of the day, it takes rain to make crops grow, doesn't it? Listen, you can work all day long. You can get out the tractors and you can get out the fertilizer and you can get all the stuff that you want to get out. But the truth is, if God don't make it rain, it's all for naught. I want you to know God will make it rain, but we need to work in the field as well. At the end of the day, He's going to make it rain. He's going to make the crops grow. But if there's no plant because the insects ate it or because the weeds overtook it, then it can rain a perfect amount of rain as well, and there's going to be no harvest. Do you see the picture there? If I don't plant the seed, there's also not going to be a plant. There's not going to be any harvest either. It takes God raining, but God allows us to put the seed in the ground and to do. So that was all to say. You got to know why you're doing what you're doing. So why are you doing it? Some of you think you know, and you do. But be passionate about it. Let God reign on the work that you've put your hands to. Secondly, and this is actually the last point, but don't think I'm finished. This is the practical side. Know what you want groups to do. In other words, how. People say to me a lot, they're like, Tom, man, I got to eat lunch with you. Can I call you on the phone? Man, you got to tell me about your group's ministry. And the first thing they ask me is, how have you structured your group's ministry? Now, we call ours small groups, but you can call it life groups, you can call it care groups, cell groups. And people would say, I'm going to drop Sunday school because it just don't work. And I told you just a second ago, the truth is it doesn't work because you don't work it. Because small groups won't work if you don't work it either. It's not set it and forget it. You remember that little oven thing they used to have? Set it and forget it. That's how... I know, I've tried that way. It don't work. You got to work the system. Listen, you can brand your groups whatever you want to brand them, but if you don't change why you do them or how you do them, then your groups will be the same forever. A few years ago, I received a call from a friend from another church in Vegas, and he said, man, I heard what's going on. I just want to sit down with you, and I just want to glean some insight, and I'm thinking, I guess I need to bring my computer or my spreadsheet because that's pretty much all I got, and there's a few extra things that he came in, he sat down, he said, Tom, I said, tell me about your church. The church had been there a long time. It's one of the older churches in town. And they actually have a facility for Sunday school. And they have Sunday school. He told me so. He said, we have a Sunday school. He said, but it just don't work. It just don't work. And I said, so what are you going to do? He said, well, that's why I got you. I want to know what you're doing in small groups so we can get them off campus. I'm going to have to talk to my pastor about it and get everybody in on it. But I need to kind of know the gist of it before I, just go full bore into this thing. So we want to have it off campus. And I said, man, I'm sure you were about to pay for this lunch, but I know after I say this, you're going to make me go Dutch. I might end up having to pay for the whole thing. I said, man, the problem's not what you're calling it and where it is. That's not the problem. Your thinking has to change about it. Because when it goes off, you're going to have the same leaders. You're probably going to teach the same thing. You got to figure out what it is that's tripping you up. So I want to give you some practical things today and follow this simple template, if you will, for strategy. Again, aiming at a target. I want to give you some practical things because this is how we do it at Hope. This is the easy stuff to dream about as you ask what's really important and what you do want your people to learn. Like, you got to ask yourself these questions, and it can't be what Hope does. It can't be what First Woodstock does. It can't be what First Mount Dora does. It can't be what First anybody does. It's got to be what you do. God has a mission and He's got a church, but every church is different. Sometimes we think God's got a church and then we got a mission, but the truth is God's got a mission. He just let us in on it. But we all are different, even across the street, okay? So strategies at Hope kind of look like this. When you talk about a strategy of small groups, there are 4 things I want our groups to do. I want them to personally and corporately have spiritual growth together. I want them to study the Bible. I want them to pray together. I want them to pray with one another. The second thing I want them to do is I want them to have in-group connection. to see group as family and to care for each other. These first two are simple because people think group, that's what group or Sunday school is about. It's about praying together, learning the Bible together, and it's about taking care of each other. Most people have that down pat, but the last two are the ones that they usually leave aside. The other thing number three I want them to do, and I don't have this up here for you, I probably should have, is evangelism and service. Encourage one another to share the gospel personally and then serve others together as a group to evangelize and to serve. Listen, the way we win people to Christ in Vegas is not new. We do it through groups. In fact, we do everything through groups. We nominate deacons through groups, believe that or not. All the announcements go through groups. You can't lead a mission trip if you're not in a group. Like, groups are what everything revolves around. Evangelism and service. And then last, leadership development. Identifying and training leaders. And here's how we say it. Upward, inward, outward, onward. Upward, relationship with God. Study the Bible. Inward, care for each other. Outward, the evangelistic service opportunity. And then onward, who in my group is going to be the next leader? People say, Tom, where are the leaders coming from in your church? In my groups. Our leaders know the next leaders in your group. Who are they? I don't know. They're in your group. You tell me. Tom, you must go around looking for leaders all the time. Well, to be honest, because I really like to do it, I got a keen eye on stuff, but the truth is that our leaders are actually producing the leaders. That's what we do. That's part of group. And listen, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time explaining those four things. I spent more time than I just wanted to. But what I wanted to do was give you kind of a template to work from or a way to think through exactly what it is that you want to do. Maybe you don't want to do those things, but here's the deal. Just find out what you do want to do and then do it. So how do we get these things accomplished? What are some things that set the foundations for our groups? What are the things that really matter pertaining to groups at Hope? Here they are. They're simple. I'm just going to go through them one by one and try to hurry through it. The first thing should be on the screen, a training structure to train future group leaders. Does anybody want to lead a small group? Anybody? Are you breathing? Because we'll take you. We'll just give you, it's Jesus teaching it, right? So we'll just give you the Bible, and then we don't really need the training part. Listen, get a training together. One of the things that made what I do so easy at our church is our guys had already put together a training called Shepherd's Training. And it was 8 straight weeks of 2 hours serious training that we asked our people to come up on Tuesday night just to do it. It's a one-time deal. You can also do a refresher course in it. But I'm telling you, it changed us. It changed our church. It was the 250 leaders that we had that weren't doing anything. I knew where to go get them. Make a structure. I've told our guys, we need to copyright this and let it out. It's developed us into the place that we are. We talk about spiritual leadership, establishing that foundational understanding of the crucial characteristics needed to lead others to Jesus. The second thing we talk about is the devotional life, what Michael talked about this morning. We lead best when we've been with Jesus. The best lesson you'll ever teach is the one God's teaching you, right? Yeah. Amen. Thank you. Leading with mission. We talk about getting all leaders on the same page, where we are going as a church. Like, our leaders need to know what the mission is. It can't be held by the staff. Everybody needs to know what we're doing. We have a discipleship goal. We ask our people to abide, connect, and share, and that just isn't enough. So we ask them to listen, we lead them to actually abide and connect and share, not just ask them, our people, to do that. The other thing we talk about is understanding and using doctrine rightly. We talked about biblical interpretation. We do multiplying leadership. We do a personal growth plan for them. And after Shepherd's Training, which is our initial leadership development, all leaders are then sent to their specific area of service. Listen, if you work in the parking lot, you got to take this class. If you work with the babies, or if you lead a Sunday school class, or whatever job is in your church, everybody who's a leader goes through this. And then we branch them off to the specific areas where I do small group leader training, and somebody else does family ministry training with youth and with children, and parking lot has their own training, believe it or not. We need that. Listen, if you don't have a training, then how do you know what target you're aiming at? You say, Tom, that's a lot of work. Farming's hard work. Second, Getting people connected to people. Now, let me explain this to you. Connecting everyone who allows us to connect them. So our mission, again, we exist to connect people to live the life of a Jesus follower. Have any of you ever been to Hope? I know somebody has because they used to serve with us at Hope. Yeah. Has anybody else ever been to Hope? Good. Tell you whatever I want. Just kidding. I love our worship on Sundays. It's amazing. Like our team that leads us in music, but not just the music worship, but the teaching. Vance is a phenomenal orator. He has a gift from God to preach and teach the Word of God. Our worship services are amazing. And if you ever come out there, please come visit us. Listen, our worship through music, Spirit-filled. Our preaching, well-planned, studied, impactful. I could go on about that one because there's a whole lot in that. Our brief fellowship with each other in the courtyard and the foyer is refreshing, except for when it's 120 outside, and then we run to our cars and turn the air conditioner on. But if we really want people to have a way to both be served and to serve, then the small group is the best way to accomplish this. Listen, this isn't just about getting together and hooping and hollering. This isn't about hearing another sermon. Listen, most people in this room have heard so many sermons, you are soaking wet with sermons. We got people up here leading us to Jesus, and we've heard those songs so many times, we're just singing them. We got all kinds of knowledge, but listen, the passion toward it is a big, huge deal. For me, I wasn't always in ministry. I actually liked what I did before I quit that job and got into ministry. I still like it. But man, I didn't have the passion toward it like I do now. I know what God's called me to do. I know the mission He has us on. I see lives changed constantly. Getting people connected to people. Why is that so important? Because people need to both be served and they also need to express their own gift. Listen, you got to give your people a way to express the gifts that they have. You got to give them some leadership. You got to give them a way to be able to say, this is what I'm good at and this is how I can bless. And I don't even know where this fits, but I'm going to say it in a breakout later. But my best teachers are my worst small group leaders. So let that sink in for a second. My best teachers are my worst small group leaders. Pete Rose was a baseball player who, did he get surpassed as the singles? I don't think he did. I think he's still the hits leader. But he did some things he shouldn't have done, and so they've kept him out of the Hall of Fame. But Pete Rose was not known for his home runs. In fact, he was known for his hits, just getting on base. Sometimes he bunted. Sometimes I tell my leaders, listen, some of you have worked so hard, some of them I'm convinced, have a podium right next to their fireplace in their home, and they stand behind it and preach like Vance does on Sunday. And their people look at them and they go, I could never do that. And they produce no leaders out of their groups. Listen, my best teachers are my worst small group leaders. Listen, we give detailed announcements through our groups. We let people get served through our groups. We let them serve. Our deacons are nominated. Our mission trip, I've already told you. Future small group leaders originate from them. Nearly all pastoral care happens in groups at our church. Not to even mention, of course, one-on-one discipleship. People say, what about the men's ministry and the women's ministry? I mean, what about the singles ministry? Here's what we've done. We don't even have those. Well, every church needs a women's ministry. A man's ministry. How do you do it? Well, here's what we did. After we sat down and wrote what we wanted to do, we just didn't see how it fit. We have a women's ministry. It's women's small groups. We have a men's ministry. It's all the men's small groups. You say, well, I want the women's ministry. Or I want the men. Well, here's the deal. They told me in seminary, one of the last days I was there, they said, listen, your people are going to give you 1 hour to 2 hours per week. You pick the hours. Listen, you have a softball team, some of them, that's going to be their time. You know what I'm saying? I'm serious. You do a women's ministry, people say, I don't need groups. I got the women's ministry. I like to cook, gravy and biscuits at the men's breakfast on Saturday mornings. That's what I want to do, and I don't really have time for the men's small group. Listen, your small group or your Sunday school is as vital as your worship. In fact, I'm about to show you at the end today, it's more vital than even the worship service. Thank you, Fred. You taught me that, but I'm going to, But it's true. And you're going to see why here in a second. It is important for people to be connected in community. We say it like this. Life change happens in community. You say, how are we going to see people saved? Listen, in your group. You say, our groups are more discipleship driven. Why? I'm for discipleship. Don't get me wrong. I love it. Fred will tell you, I wrote a whole thing on it. I got a whole book on it. But what about the people that don't know Jesus? How are they going to learn about Jesus? 1 Corinthians chapter 14 says that when the unbeliever comes in among you, that he'll be convinced, he'll be convicted when he hears what you got to say about the gospel and Jesus. You say, well, the small group is where we just get deeper. Well, then call it a discipleship group. But please don't say that you're winning people because you just can't do it like that. And people need to be won. You say, well, the pastor on Sunday, he preaches like a mongrel. I mean, he's just a beast up there. And people get saved, Not like they will in group. It's hard for me to hold this statistic, but I'll hold this later. We connect everybody that wants to be connected. Groups have become the DNA of our church. Now, when we connect them, here's how we connect them. I just want to show you this, and then I'll move on. Next slide, if you don't mind there, because I'm skipping some stuff. When we receive a person's age, zip code, and marital status, we place them in the most convenient group to accommodate the request. You say, some people would say, how do you put people in groups? I look at, there are really 2 or 3 things that I want to know. I want to know what your zip code is, because there's like 30-something in Vegas now, maybe closer to 40. I want to know your zip code. I want to know how old you are, and I want to know if you're married or not. And to be honest with you, that's pretty much all I do. I'm actually a guy who likes men's and women's small groups more than I like couples, but I go with couples because sometimes men won't do it unless their wife is actually involved. So I've come off that a little bit. But here's what I can tell you. This works. Listen, I want to put people close to where they're going to go to their small group, because if they got to drive 15 miles, the devil will get in their ear, and that'll be the last time they show up. And if you miss one time, the next time gets easier. Our groups don't stop and start either. We put age, we put zip code, we put marital status, and then they go for it. Sometimes driving distance doesn't matter, but most of the time it actually does. The third thing, seeing group as family, people doing life together. Now, this may be a little bit harder for some of you, and the reason I say that, you need a training structure, you need to get people connected to people, but you got to also get your group seeing each other's family. Now, this, for the culture, and Oklahoma is a deeply faith-based state. I know that. But so are most places in the South. And the thing I can tell you about us is when we hear family, we think about my grandparents, I mean, I'm like 5th generation Christian. My parents are Christians, my grandparents are Christians, my great-grandparents, my great-great-grandparents, and my great-great-great-grandparents were Christians. So for me, when I hear family, that's what I think of. I think about the Jamerson reunion, the McCormick reunion, you just go down it. So we got these reunions, but here's what I'm going to tell you. In Vegas, ain't nobody family, because we all move there. So this isn't hard for us. But the truth is, too, in the scripture, the Bible talks about a family relationship all throughout the New Testament. Brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers. 1 Timothy, Paul wrote to Timothy, and he said, treat old men like this and old women like this, and the older and the younger. Remember that part? And he said, treat them like your father, your mother, your brother, your sister. Why? Because we are a family. And when people see themselves as that, things change. You see, seeing another person and loving them as family is just different. This relationship has responsibility and accountability. This isn't just going to a Bible study and leaving it until the next week or 2 weeks from now. No, this is because when I talk about small groups and Sunday school, I'm not talking about the 1.5 to 2 hours you meet on Tuesday. That's the small group meeting. Small group is 166 hours. See, some of y'all just got freaked out. I can't tell my people that. That's too much work. Listen, texting is a beautiful thing. Encouraging each other. Loving, tell them you got a problem. Listen, that's what I mean by group. It's a constant family type thing. The next thing, we don't drop a person from our small group roster. Does anybody else here do this besides me? You don't drop anybody on your rolls? Anybody? Yeah, most of y'all dropping people. I can tell. That's why she got. Yes, why she can. Why do you do that? You say, well, they're not coming. Then they need more prayer. Y'all hear me? They're not coming. I know they could be lost. They could be hurting. I had a guy in one of my small groups one time. He didn't show up for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I got concerned about him. And so I went to his house, and I knocked on his door, and he came to the door. Here's what happened. He came to the door, and he looked like he had been run over by something. He was disheveled, looked like he hadn't had a shower for a week. I said, Darren, what's going on? He said, she left me 3 weeks ago. I said, why didn't you tell us? He said, man, I can't do anything. I can't go to work. I can't do the thing. Listen, had he not been, well, he hadn't been in 3 weeks. We just drop him. Darren don't want to be in our group. No. I went and said, Darren, what's up? He said, she left me. They got back together, by the way. That's what small group ministry is. That's what Sunday school is for, to take care of the people that are in your group. One of the 4 things that we want to do. So don't drop them. We only remove them from a roster when they pass away. I asked that question. They said, hey, Tom, can we drop the Smiths off our roll? I said, well, did the Smiths die? They said, well, no, they didn't die. I said, well, did they move 100 miles away? And they said, no, they still live on Lilac Lane over there. Well, did they ask you to take them off, or this last thing, did they join another church here in the valley? No, they're just not really in. I said, then don't drop them. They said, but if I don't drop them, man, my percentage is going to go down. Like, I got to have people showing up. I said, so you want to impress me with the 100% attendance? Like, why would you want that? Because I'm not asking for that. Listen, the people on your rosters, and this is actually going to be the very next thing, understand that those who aren't attending are as important as those who are. Actually, a little bit more important to minister to. Now, remember what our topic is, building strong groups. You want a strong group, do these things. Like, they're idiosyncrasy, little small things you may think, but they are a big deal. Understand that those who aren't attending are as important as those who do. We got a tendency to just drop them, to focus on those who are there more than those who aren't. And that is normal, and that's actually not bad. But never forget that those who aren't attending are important too. So here's a few tips I want to give you quickly. Number 1, pray for them. If the Smiths aren't coming and they decide not to come and they're still on your roster, you still have them at the frontal lobe of your mind. You can pray for them. Listen, we say it all the time. Contact, contact, contact. Always invite the people to everything you do. I was standing at the, have I gone over? Are we good? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm going to wrap it up. Okay. Always invite them to everything you do. I was standing at the table one morning in the foyer, and a guy walked up and he said, hey, my name is so-and-so. I said, oh man, you're in my group. I've never met you face to face. You've been on my roll for 6 months, but where you been? You said you wanted to be in a group. We put you in a group, and now he's like, no, I'm sorry. I know. I've been getting your emails. I'm sorry. I said, here's the deal, man. It's no big deal. You come when you get ready. Well, soon after that, something happened in his life, and he showed up. Don't drop them. Those who aren't are as important as those who do. Let me give you just a couple more, and then I'm going to do the statistics. Never give up, no matter the obstacle. That's another one. Don't ever stop. People are going to stop doing everything they do, but don't ever give up. Encourage your leaders never to give up. Being or having a pastor that values groups is huge. You can't make your pastor do it, and I can't make your pastor do it either, but it's huge. If you are a pastor, be somebody that values group. Now, let me give you the statistics. I actually don't have them on the screen, but let me give them to you. We did some statistical data analysis a few years ago. And what we did was we separated first-time visitors into one of 2 categories. We separated them into the visited group before they came to the church, because we know when people visited. And we separated them, the other group, into the visited a service first. So you got it? They visited a group first, they visited a small group first. They didn't know anything about Hope, but they went to a group first. So they visited Hope and they came to the service first. Listen to this. 1 out of every 3 people who visited a small group first eventually got saved. Does anybody want to guess what it was for the service? This is where I'll close. 1 out of 241. But here's what we do. Man, we got to have this. And listen, I love I go to all our services. We got 4 every Sunday, and I attend every one of them. I sing when it's singing time. I take notes in one of them and then listen for the rest when we teach. I love it. But I'm telling you, that's not how we're seeing people come to Christ. When we started doing small group at Hope 8 years ago, baptisms have tripled. Now, I know everybody gets baptized, may or may not be saved. I get that. I mean, they say they are, and maybe they are. I hope they are. We don't just put people through it because it's there. But here's what I can tell you. We got a whole lot more candidates. How are you going to win people to Jesus? Pastor can't do it. But I'm telling you, you can.